Welcome to our first 2013 Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month celebration event called Stories Across the Dining Table, which is a panel discussion on how Asian American identity is expressed through food. Food is a magnetic force that brings people together. And it's definitely a case for today because the weather was really horrible today. But literally this food discussion did bring us together here. So thank you for being here today. And we are so honored to have amazing chefs to be here with us tonight. So we have Chef Comerford from the White House Executive Chef, and Chef Fukushima from Dakeya, and Chef Okoshi from Ka's Sushi Bistro, and Chef Vinod from Indie Kites. And also, this panel discussion will be led by Dr. Conrad Ng from Smithsonian. So thank you so much for being here today. And I also want to thank our supporters and tremendous supporters for this event today. First of all, Goethe-Institut. I want to make sure that I pronounce it right. Goethe-Institut for providing this wonderful venue for today. And also for the later reception, we have many restaurants and places providing food and teas. So we have Ching Ching Cha, we have Mandu, Momiji, Ka's Sushi Bistro, and Indie Kites. So thank you so much for your support. And now you know the menu for the reception later. So hopefully you can stay around and stay through this event and enjoy and tasting some of the food later today. I want to also make sure to thank the greatest team, OAPIA, the Office on Asian and Pacific Island Affairs, especially Christina Trong right there. She's the newest addition to our team. And she actually came up with this great idea and took on this project. And I think she did a great job. Don't you think so? So thank you, Christina, for putting this event together. And make our first celebration event even more special, we have our mayor here with us today to welcome all of you and also the speakers today. And without further ado, I don't think that I need to do any extra introduction for our mayor. I would like to welcome our mayor, Mr. Vincent Gray, who is the one who truly appreciates, understands, and also promotes the diversity of our great city. Mayor Vincent C. Gray.
This is a great way to launch the Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month. I want to thank Julie also for the great job that she does. She worked with me in this office before I became the mayor. And I asked her if she would continue to work with us when I became the mayor. Boy, that was a smart decision. She works so well with people and does such a great job making sure that the Asian and Pacific Islander, Asian American and Pacific Islander issues are handled effectively here in the city. Also delighted to be joined by our moderator, Conrad Ng. Thank you, sir. Very much for doing this. And the White House Executive Chef, Comerford. Thank you so much, and the other chefs. I guess it's probably fair to say this has been really tastefully done. That's terrible, that's terrible.
Actually, it's pretty good, Bob.
Compared to some of the others, right? In any event, this is such a great idea to be able to do this way, and I think it recognizes, as Julie indicated, the strong diversity that we have in our city today. We are a growing, developing city, and if you look at our population over the last several years, especially in the last couple of years, we are growing at the rate of about 1,100 or 1,200 people a month. We now have 632,000 people in the District of Columbia. And frankly, it's probably more than that because that number goes back, I think, Steve, to last July. And if we're growing at the rate of 1,100 or 1,200 a month, that means we're probably closer to 650,000 people at this stage, or 640+ thousand people. And the diversity is a huge part of the growth that we're seeing in the city. I think, Julie, isn't the second fastest growing population in the city? Yeah. Fastest. Yes. All right. Fastest growing population are our Asian American and Pacific Islander folks in the District of Columbia. So that is good news, and good to hear that we are continuing to not only grow, but we also are a place that welcomes people into the city. There's so many things about this city that are growing. I mean, again, having grown up here, it is so exciting, you know, to see what is going on at this stage. We have buildings, you know, development going on everywhere. Our Deputy Mayor for Planning and Economic Development, Victor Hoskins, told me last weekend that we have 61 cranes now, which is, we'd never been to 60 before, so now we're at 61, and development is taking place everywhere. So not only are we growing buildings, but we're also growing appetites. And we'll be able to enrich ourselves tonight as well. So again, I want to thank the Goethe-Institut. I want to thank Julie and her staff who do such a great job. And I want to thank Conrad Ng and the chefs that have joined us tonight for such a great evening. So thank you all very much. And on with the show, Ray. Thank you very much.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening, Your Excellency, your mayor. It's great that you're here. I'm very honored, and thank you, chefs, for being here tonight. You're really making culture, giving culture a new dimension. A dimension, of course, we have always been thinking of. I mean, all the Goethe-Institutes I've been working with, we try to get our kitchen a little bit more mobile and do something for Christmas, like Christmas cooking or Christmas cakes or Christmas pudding or whatnot. Or, I mean, you know that German foods, I mean, we are famous for bratwurst and for schnitzel, but also for asparagus, for the German asparagus, of course. The German one, the white one, the thick one. So, yes, food is certainly a great communicator. It's a wonderful thing to host people and to spoil them, to make them feel well, and to say in the end, wow, German food is great. But today we are not about German food. Today we are about Asian food, and I must admit I love Asian food. I had some years that I could spend in Southeast Asia and in Far East, and yeah, I sometimes miss it very much, despite the bratwurst, of course. Yeah, I'm very honored that you are here. Goethe-Institut, you might wonder what is Goethe. Goethe was the most famous poet in Germany, and I also want to mention him because he did not only write about German language things. He was, of course, connected in his time, that was the 18th century, with all the countries around, all the languages around, French, English, Danish. So it was familiar, but he also looked beyond. He looked to India, and he looked to China, and he was one of the first translators, of course, with help of others. So this is why we chose Goethe, because for the name stands for the program. It's international cooperation. It's international cooperation not only here, but everywhere. And here in Chinatown, which used to be Germantown, of course, we reach out to the Asian population between 6th and 7th Street and H, right? More or less. And we have even a poetry program, which is American, German, Chinese, so reaching out to the Chinese community. But we are open for all kinds of cooperation. So thank you for being here. I wish you a great evening, and I think it's the right topic and the right way to do culture communication. Thank you.
Well, aloha, everyone, if I may use the greeting. Thank you. Mr. Mayor, thank you for your leadership. Thank you, Julie, Christina, for putting together an excellent program. And of course, the hospitality at the Goethe-Institut is as the mayor said, it's a wonderful, wonderful discovery to come inside and to see all the things that you do. So my name's Conrad Ng. I'm the director of the Smithsonian Asian Pacific American Center. We're a pan-institutional unit of the Smithsonian. We show how the Asian Pacific American experience is a universal lens for learning, sparks the learning in everyone, and reflects the American spirit. We have an exhibition on right now at the National Museum of American History called I Want the Wide American Earth, and I hope you'll check it out because it's free and it's, of course, yours. It belongs to the public. Now, as many of you know, you can't really understand the district without understanding the history and identity of its residents and how different communities have shaped the atmosphere of place. And food has always been a profound way to understand identity and history. A single dish can represent the elegance of heritage and tradition passed on across generations. A single dish can bear the hardship or success of an immigration story. A single dish can be a symbol of cross-cultural intersection. In fact, a single dish can be all of these things, all at once. Tonight's discussion explores how people's various immigration stories and historical food migration have both contributed to a growing food fusion culture in the U.S. And I should add, as you know, was speaking with the chefs earlier, we all recognize that the district's in a renaissance actually when it comes to food. For many of you who have lived here for perhaps all your life, or maybe just in the past decade, or perhaps between administrations, it certainly has been different and better. And I think it's enriched by the particular stories that we're going to be talking about tonight. And that food is the profound way to understand the Asian Pacific American experience. Now, I'm joined by some incredible people who have been expressing identity through food for most of their lives, and the truth is it's a thrill to be here tonight. And they all wondered, you know, why it was sold out. This event was sold out in 2 days. And I said, it was you. You folks had brought people out because of what you do for the district, through your craft, and of course, the topic. I'm going to ask each of our guests, we're going to have a conversation, as they say in Hawaii, I'd like to talk story and see if we can get to some things that are shared among the table, across the table, and among our own experiences. And as we begin, I'm going to ask each chef to introduce him or herself and tell us about your place of work, share its history and its concept, and from there, we'll have a few more questions and then some time at the end for the audience. So I would like to invite up, not invite up, I'd like to ask our my executive chef to the right here to begin the conversation.
Okay. Magandang gabi sa inyong lahat. Just like aloha, but it means good evening to you all in Filipino and Tagalog. My name is Chris Comerford. I am the White House executive chef. I've been a sous chef at the White House since 1997 during the Clinton administration. Then Mrs. Bush appointed me to this position in 2005, and Mrs. Obama retained me in this wonderful, really amazing job. And, you know, all of these guys next to me, they work in this magnificent restaurant. I work in a magnificent house, only famous house in the world. So, thank you.
My name is Kottapurat Narayanan Vinod. It's KN Vinod for short. Let me tell you a quick story, if I may.
Sure, of course.
Yeah. It was the year 1987. I met the love of my life, and I wanted to get married. So I was living in Arlington, went to the Alexandria Courthouse, and the person administering the wedding, you know, he just said, Kottapura whatever, you know, and it's, so my wife always, you know, says I got married to Mr. Whatever. So the moral of the story is, folks, as Asian Americans, and keep short names which people can pronounce, or people, if it gets and it fits into the computer, you know. So basically, to go back to my introduction, I grew up in India. I did my hotel management in Chennai, Madras, and then to work for hotels in Delhi. We were selected as a management trainee and worked in basically in the kitchen. We were trained in all different aspects of the kitchen, front office, butchery and garde-manger and in various types of Indian kitchens. And then this hotel chain also used to do a lot of food festivals. And it was one of those food festivals that I came to America to organize Festival of India.
Good evening. My name is Kazuo Koch. Kazuhiro is my full name, the long name, and people call me Kaz. So, I was born and raised in Nagoya, Japan. And when I was 19, I first came to the United States. That was Oklahoma. Don't ask me why. Just happened. And to study fine arts. So I was painting and sculpting and all those things. And after 3 years, I went back to Japan to study food, cooking. So that was a goal anyway. So I always wanted to do that since I was a little. So I went to culinary school in Japan, Osaka. And I really like living in the States. So that became my goal to come back to the States. And at school, I was mainly studying French cooking, which is my main focus. But it was at that time, about 1980, it was 85. And sushi becoming really popular. So my counselor said, why don't you learn sushi, and if you want to go to the States. So that's what I kind of switched my direction. So then 1988, I came to DC because I got a job. And I just, since I have a little bit, I shouldn't say background, but the interest of a French and different cuisine, I started developing my own style of cooking, which is the Japanese backbone, but also adapting or adding some other food from all over the world. So they're just starting my own cooking style. Then 1999, I opened my own restaurant, Kazu Sushi Bistro, 19th and I, if you haven't been there yet. So it's been 14 years, exciting 14 years, and I'm very happy and I'm very honored to be here, and hope we can have a good evening tonight.
Good evening. I get nervous in these kind of things. I'm a lot more comfortable in the kitchen. So my name is Katsuya Fukushima. I have a restaurant that just opened on 6th Street. It's called Daikaya. I've actually been in the neighborhood for about the last 12 years. And I started at, it's funny because I worked for a lot of great chefs in the city. I worked for Jeffrey Boobin at Vidalia. I worked for this guy right here, Kaz. I worked for Ann Cashin at Cashin's. And I finally met up with my mentor, Jose Andres, who I was with for 12 years and became his culinary director. And I opened up Cafe Atlantico. I opened Zaytinya, OML. And then I finally opened up Minibar, which was one of the best, was one of the funnest things I've ever did. And before that, Jose sent me to Spain and worked at this little restaurant called El Bulli. And so my background is not Japanese food, but it's a funny thing because I ended up opening a Japanese restaurant. So, I call my mom often, asking her for recipes that I've eaten when I was a kid. So, yeah, I'm happy to be here, and I love DC. I'm going to continue growing in DC and opening up more restaurants, hopefully.
That's a really interesting point, that last part, Chef Katsuya, where you, I'm going to pose this for everyone. Just that journey, right? You're for each of you, it's a personal journey, and then it's also this professional journey. And I was wondering, we'll start off with Chef Comerford, if you would talk about, when did you know you wanted to be a chef, but how does that relate to that journey in America, right? And either, for some of us being born there or coming here. Can you link the two? And then want to...
Sure. I came from a family of 11 kids. So if you have, that big of a household, there's always the smell of food at every point in time. And in any Asian home, I don't know, my home, there's always rice on the stove, whatever time of the day it is. It's a must that there has to be rice. Breakfast, lunch, dinner, there's always something. And one amazing thing growing up is that seeing this, my mom cooking for a household of kids and relatives and distant families and friends, it's about 30 people that she feeds per meal every time. So it's something that I'm accustomed to. And so 3rd grade, I kind of volunteered, Mom, I'll help you out. I'll cook for our family. I was in the 3rd grade. But then, growing up, I really enjoyed it, but not as a profession or something that eventually I would want to become. I took food technology when I went to the University of the Philippines. I was a science geek. I loved the sciences. I came from Manila Science High School, where everything that we did is about molecules, and I love, I just really get kind of goosebumps when I do sciences. But for some reason, the doors was opening a different route for me. My dad even asked me, Chris, I think you should go to a culinary school. And this is the time when chefs are not even celebrities. Chefs are just back of the house people that nobody knows. We just toil in the kitchen. We make everyone happy, and that's it. So answering back again to the journey, I didn't know that I wanted to be a chef, but it was my dad, because kids, always listen to your parents because really, really, they know the best thing for you. And if I have not listened to him, I mean, looking back, he really pretty much summed up what my talent was. So I'm going to pass on my mic.
In my case, basically after schooling, I joined hotel management. And in hotel management, cooking was a major subject. And it was one of those cooking classes was going on. I was just fooling around. There was supposed to be a lamb dish, a korma, which was supposed to be nice and thick. So I was just fooling around and just came back. This dish accidentally became nice and thick. The chef instructor called everybody and said, "Look at this dish, this is the way it's supposed to be." And I just had to put my collar up and say, wow. So from then on, I started taking interest in food. Otherwise, basically, I had no idea that I was going to be a chef. Then I had to prove to everybody that. Then from there, I went on to, I was selected as a management trainee, as I said earlier. When we joined a hotel, we had an option. Either you could join as a management trainee and specialize in front of the house and become a food and beverage manager, or a front office manager, or in the kitchen. So I opted for the latter, and that's how I've helped.
Well, for many reasons, I feel very fortunate. And one of the things is I feel very fortunate because I never really need to choose or think about which job I want to get and what I want to do. Because since I was little, I pretty much know I wanted to be a chef or, cooking. And I remember when I was a third grade, I cooked for my mother's birthday, and I saw her tears after that. But in fifth grade, about fifth grade, I was cooking. Well, both of my parents working, so I was pretty much alone at home when I get home from school. And I would try to make a nice strawberry shortcake, and I tried, beating the egg white and everything. And for fifth grade, I didn't have any electric mixer or anything, so I tried to, do it with my hands and never get really fluffy, just always like a cookie. So then I was interested in watching the food show on TV. So ever since, since I was little, I knew, or I shouldn't say I knew, but that's something I was interested. I never even thought about, doing any other career. Or probably this is the only talent I have, so I think it's very matched. But then another thing is about the U.S. is that's another dream. I've been watching Brady Bunch to a lot of movies and TV show in Japan. So I really thought the U.S. was like a dream country. And I until I start kind of seeing the reality. But I love this country, of course. But so those things got together, and here I am cooking in the dream country, I should say.
Was Brady Bunch in Japanese? I had no idea what I wanted to do, but I'm very, very blessed to be doing what I am doing now because I can't imagine doing anything else. I love what I do. I could be in the kitchen for 18 hours and I'm as excited and as energetic as I am when I walked in the door. But I went to school at Maryland. I was a math and art major. I started off as a biochem and molecular biology major and realized it was really, really hard. And I lost my scholarship in my first year. So I went to what was easy for me, which was math. And because I was taking calculus when I was in 6th grade. So I figured I'll just be a math major because that's way too easy. So I just kind of coasted through college. But while I was in college, I was lucky enough to, when I was living in College Park, I had 5 girls as a roommate. And so I used to skip class and I used to just make dinner for them. I'd set the table up and it was a 5-course it was like a whole spiel and I loved it. And it was one of my roommates that actually said that maybe you should go to culinary school. And I didn't realize that, that was an option until after school when I was working at the gun range as a shooting instructor. And, a friend of mine, his mother worked at Ridgewell's, which is a catering company with the purple trucks. And the U.S. Open was in town, and they were cooking for 10,000 people. And I didn't realize that what a production cooking was. And then as soon as I walked in the kitchen, I saw the chef screaming, but it was like this organized chaos. And, it was like, I tell people all the time, it was like the heavens opened up, and it was like, that I knew it. And then I worked for a week, and then I went to culinary school. I applied to culinary school a week after, and it was nonstop ever since.
That's amazing. When you listen to each of your stories, there's this a sense of home or arrival, right? In finding cooking, or cooking finds you, or you found cooking and you found each other. And I find that with Asian American communities, the notion of home, it means multiple things, right? It generally doesn't mean kind of the white picket fence, leave it to Beaver. It usually means parents coming at some point from a different country that has had an experience of this or that. And I'm curious, this is something where we think of home and cooking. What would be a favorite dish of yours that you remember from your childhood, or would be iconic of your childhood that your parents cooked? I suspect there's something there that's a little different than what people would maybe traditionally think a childhood dish would be. Does anyone want to start, or do we? Yes, please.
So favorite dish from my childhood.
Yeah, you cooked to your parents and your childhood.
I think probably same as almost any other Japanese kids. My favorite dish was curry and rice. But of course, it's a Japanese version, so it's totally different from how he cooks. But that's something is very popular, and I think the most of the Japanese kids love that. So, but not only that, there's another thing. I feel very fortunate is even at home in Japan, we explore so many different food. Like probably the second favorite is probably spaghetti. That's another thing is the Japanese version. It's not really, if my Italian chef friend see that or taste that, I'm saying, what is this? So I'm sure that's pretty far away from real Italian pasta or spaghetti. But those things are my favorite. And looking at my younger age.
Well, Chef Cosmin,
Yes.
let me do a follow-up, and this is for everyone. How has that influenced your own approach to cooking, right? If each of you and all of us has a childhood favorite, and if this is your profession and your love, what elements end up in your dishes now?
It's very difficult to tell you what like specific dish or anything, but I think the one thing I can say is like 20 years ago in this country, there's a fusion cuisine was all over, and it was big, trend. But to me, it's kind of natural to mix in things. Since I was a little, I exposed to so many different type of the cuisine. And if you look at even today, look at the Japanese magazine, especially for female cooking things. I mean, those are housewives. They invent a lot of things, mixing different ingredients from all over the world. So those things, just theory, is just really comes to me very easy to mixing or combine different ingredients or technique or different culture.
I think for me, one of my favorite dishes, when I remember growing up, was basically a simple fish curry made with raw green mangoes or tamarind, in an earthenware pot. So those tastes are there with you when you grew up with. So what we have done here in the restaurant is we brought in those flavors in some of the dishes and even some of the drinks. For example, after coming to America, I had no clue what a margarita was when we were in India. But here, I said, why not? You have tamarind margarita, So things like that. So we have, basically, towards the end, we'll be showing a PowerPoint presentation. I've got some pictures of this, which I'll be able to walk through and show you exactly what spices and what we have, our modern take, our contemporary take on some of the dishes.
One thing with the Philippine cuisine, it's such a mix of different, ancestry, because we were under the Spanish for like 300 years. And during the galleon trade, the Spaniards would travel from the Pacific all the way to Mexico. So you see a lot of tamales in our dishes as well. So we have a lot of Mexican influence as well. We have a lot of Malay influence, Indian influence, kare kare, which is a Tamil word on the word curry. So even my favorite dish as a child, it's pancit. It's just a noodle dish, but the root of that word actually is a Chinese word for pancit. It's a noodle dish, but when the Spaniards came in, they actually called this Chinese restaurant panciteria, which is a Spanish take on the Chinese word. So you could just see how the fusion, in a way, even though that the Philippines is way out there, way back during the Spanish time, that was 1600s, that our food is already a mix and a fusion of different cultures and different, tastes. So coming to America, how would that affect me? I mean, in a way, I have a lot of good foundation because I'm used to so many different cuisines already. So it's not a stretch for me to find different ingredients and kind of mix and do it in my style. So for me, it's almost like a natural thing.
When I was a kid, one of my favorite things I like to eat, this is what my mom told me, was hot rice with powdered milk on top and sugar. And so, now I'm thinking back, I'm like, okay, I worked at El Bulli, so I was deconstructing a rice pudding when I was a little kid. So that's one of my favorites, apparently. But when I was in like college, high school, my dad used to make this like secret chili, and I loved this chili. And one day he told me that it was Hormel chili, pork and beans, and some other all mixed up, and canned corn. That's and I loved it. And I was like, I grew up loving that, and I love that. My dad's Hawaiian, so I grew up eating Vienna sausages and teriyaki Vienna sausages and Vienna sausage sandwiches. I love it all. So I'm not. If anyone wants to cook for me, I don't have a snobby palate. I love everything. So I mean, I take that. I love cereal. I love fast food. I hate to say it, but I do love fast food, and so I'm not a snob when it comes to food. So that's my approach to cooking. Is it doesn't have to be the most expensive ingredients. It doesn't have to be, just all fussy on the plate. It just has to taste good.
This is fascinating to me because each of you start off with the assumption of mix or hybridity, of having sort of multiple options, right, in composing. And as that reflects for Asian American communities, we can either think of colonialism in the Philippines, plantation system in Hawaii, Japanese and its intersection with U.S. Popular culture in World War II, India, former colony of the British, and obviously the tea and spice empire influenced it. We all recognize that. I mean, I think that's something that's easy to recognize as being someone from Asian descent, hearing stories from your family or experiencing it yourself. Have you found, though, when you come to the United States, or when we're in America, that there's a desire to say, well, this is authentic? Do you know what I mean? Like, if you come from the premise that, okay, everything is mixed, that's how we did it. I mean, spam musubi, it's got all spam and everything. We have different kinds of dishes. And then you open up a restaurant and you immediately are kind of pigeonholed. It's, well, this is a Japanese noodle home. This is an Indian, this is a fusion Japanese. It's a Filipino-American chef who can do this. I mean, do you find that there's a struggle? Like, do you think that there is a struggle? And if so, is there a way to overcome it, or is that just kind of a fact of America, of being able to eat? That's how we like it, like in that way. I'm curious because I mean, I can recognize it, but I know if we go out, someone will say, well, that's not a real restaurant. I'd go to here.
I'll take that one. I mean, especially since I just opened up this restaurant. It's two restaurants in one. There's a ramen shop on the first floor. We do Sapporo style ramen, and then upstairs is a izakaya. And I have this struggle, constant struggle of how to cook. You know, working with Jose, and I learned Greek food, Spanish food, Mexican food, and now I'm cooking Japanese food, and I'm learning as I go, and it's a fun journey. But and I want people to understand that when they come to my restaurant, they're kind of coming along with my journey and having fun at the same time that I'm learning. But man, don't read Yelp, because holy moly, it's like I'm doing everything wrong. I'm not Japanese enough, or it's just hard. God. So I'm trying to make everyone happy, but this, most importantly, I'm trying to make myself happy with the cooking that I do. And so, did I answer the question? I'm trying.
It's been very hard struggle for me more than 20 years, because as I said, I try to incorporate with other ingredients to Japanese cooking. So I believe, and I want to believe, I'm cooking Japanese food, even though I use truffle, foie gras, whatever, chili and whatever. I still cooking Japanese food. And as I said earlier, in 1990s, there a lot of fusion cooking was all over, and I hate that word fusion cooking, because that one is I never want to call my cooking fusion, just because when you say fusion, it kind of forces yourself or force myself to mix in. You have to mix things together with different culture or different the food. But there's something you don't want to just keep it simple, and you don't want to mix. So I don't want to force myself to mix things. Always has to mix things, but again, there's even the Japanese restaurants. When I came here in 1988, it's all cooked by Japanese people. But then after 10 years, maybe 1995, close to 2000, there's a lot of sushi got very popular, and we didn't have enough Japanese chefs. So there's a lot of other non-Japanese chefs start cooking sushi, which is I have no problem, because there's a lot of Japanese people, Japanese chefs in Japan, all over the world, cooking Indian or French or Italian, whatever. So, and they're great. So I don't have any problem the other non-Japanese chefs cooking Japanese food. But what I saw was they just without having the very strong basics of the Japanese or sushi, they just mixing things together, and a lot of time it just didn't make sense to me. So I always wanted to draw the line between inside of myself. I don't know how to say anything, but inside of myself, I wanted to draw the line between them and me, because I try to believe myself. I'm cooking, no matter what I do, I'm cooking Japanese food. So the balance is always, if I do this one, if I put a foie gras on the menu, is it really not Japanese anymore? Or all those things, just always struggle and always question to myself where I can draw the line.
I'll give you an example. When we opened Indic Heights, so we initially wanted to do a tapas style small plates. So along with that, I went to Jose Andres restaurant in Zaytina. They were giving free bread. So I thought we'll do something different. So in the south of India, they make something called as idiyappam or noolappam. It's basically the string hoppers. It's also very popular in Sri Lanka. So I went to Canada trying to get an engineer to fabricate this machine where we can make this. So I went to Chinatown, got bamboo baskets, put banana leaf, and we were serving this complimentary. So India, the food is so varied from north to south, east to west, state to state. Things are so different. Even so, Indian customers would come and say, "This is not Indian. This is noodles." So things are so different. So to say that it's authentic and things like that, so this is one of the experiences I had. So I thought I'd just share it with you.
Okay, I have a very totally different experience because I don't work in a restaurant. We entertain a lot at the White House. We do state dinners. We do receptions, for AAPI and for different groups. But the hardest thing for me is that I could do French cuisine while I'm sleeping. I'm classically trained. I could do pretty much any cuisine in the world. But when it comes back to like my home cooking, like my mom's cooking, I have to call her up every time because she never measured anything and there's no recipe. And they would just say like, just taste it. If it tastes good, it's good. But how do you know? I mean, it's always been like a struggle. For some reason, even when she bakes, she just puts everything in there. It comes out exactly the same way every time. And we chefs, we're very anal when it comes to measuring, especially, baking. It has to be, in metric system. It's not even like, so for me, that's always been a big struggle. It's like, really making it as authentic as I can. But because what I was speaking to one of my sous chefs earlier, because like, being a chef, you've tried everything, you love food. But when you come home, you always come back to your own home cuisine, whatever your mom cooked for you that you really remember. That's really your go-to food. So.
All right, a couple fun questions because I know you guys have these answers in you. Okay, so what is the worst meal you've had or prepared? Like, you will want to tell anyone in this audience, but I'm asking you right now to say it.
I don't know about the worst meal, but I can tell you about a disaster I almost had. This takes me back to the time when I was working at the Ashok Hotel, which is the largest hotel in India, and they used to do all kinds of state banquets. So those days, there was no computers, So I used to deal with the Prime Minister's house. My executive chef was a person who didn't do hotel management or he couldn't write much. So I was dictated the menu over the phone. So we had, on one side, we serve a non-vegetarian menu, and one side we had vegetarian menu. So we wrote down first course, okay, this one, second course, third. And the practice was, before the banquet starts, our vice president would come on, chef, all set, ready to go. So I want to taste everything. So we're tasting, one by one we're saying. And suddenly, you look at, on the vegetarian side, there was an okra dish was missing. Because I think either I made a mistake or the person over the telephone forgot to tell me that. And the first course is already served. Here I'm sweating, what to do. I lose my job now. But luckily, there was a person selling okra on a cart down. So, my vice president said, don't panic. Okra doesn't take much time. I said, yeah, okay. Told the other guy, come on, start the onions. And we went and got the okra, got this done. So it is so close.
So it came out, everything was fine.
It came out great. So I love okra since then.
Probably the worst, I could tell you the worst dish I ever made was, well, never made on the menu. It never worked. White chocolate and wasabi peas. It doesn't work. I tried hard, but white chocolate and wasabi. Chocolate and wasabi is great together, but I couldn't get those two to work. There's a funny story because I was in, I think, Houston. I was doing an event with Jose and a bunch of other Spanish chefs. It's like 4 other Spanish chefs. And one of the chefs had a red pepper flan, and she's like, "Can you go get it from the oven?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure, chef." And so I'm running over there. Me and Jose went over to the oven. We were pulling all the hot trays and putting it on the speed cart. The little carts with where you put the trays. So we're pushing it down this long hallway, and we're talking, and then we're just yapping, and then there's these electric wires that are taped on the floor. So we hit one, and the trays started falling down. There's probably like 8 trays, and I caught them like this. It was all hot, so I kind of burned myself. But I caught it. It's like, oh my god! It was like we're laughing. Like, did you? I said, Jose, did you ever work at an event and just had a major accident? And he goes, no. So we're laughing. We're going further, and then we make it to the doorway of the event where all the chefs are waiting with the plates. Hit another bump, and all the trays fell over. All the red pepper flans fell on the floor, and they're on like aluminum cups. So me and Jose just looked at each other and we're like, grab a bowl. So we grabbed the bowl. We had all the ones that were in the cup still, dumped in the bowl, made these beautiful canals, and then it went out fine. But the chef's face when she saw all the trays fall over, it It was heartbreaking. So it happens.
First of all, I mean, I salute you guys for being able to handle everything with such grace. I know that we've asked you to talk a little bit more about some of the food and cuisine that you, some of the ingredients and the foods that you use. So I wanted to shift to give you some time to talk about that. And mainly, it's how your identity is expressed. That's what we've asked you, how your identity is expressed through your food and through the ingredients. So I know some of you came prepared for that, so I'm not sure who would like to go first.
Okay, this is kind of like a pun on the word go-to dish. Filipinos, any Filipinos here? Okay, go-to means it's like a dish, right? So it's almost like a play on the word, my go-to dish. So, okay, what elements and ingredients are most important? Of course, family always comes first. And whatever happens, you know, everything revolves around my family. Whatever I am, right, I'm kind of like the cute one right there in the middle. I know, already fashionable, but everything revolved around food. The coolest thing is that this is my dad's hometown. Where my dad is from, it's in Batangas. The men cook for any events. It's always men chefs. But in my mom's hometown in Bulacan, it's the female who actually cooks. So I get both of those sides of my family. And then, of course, I kind of like stole all of these images from Google, so that's the magic of Googling ingredients. What elements and ingredients are most important? Like, to me as a chef, it's really whatever the freshest ingredient, anything that takes you back to that childhood. And actually, all of these ingredients in here have a story, because my most favorite dish is a pancit lomi. It's kind of like a fusion of a Chinese kind of like soupy kind of goodness. And so all of these ingredients, from the perfectly poached eggs and, you know, fish sauce, chicken stock, scallions, Chinese celery, which actually grows very well right now in this weather. So it's available here, even in DC. So all of these ingredients, even though granted that back then, 30 years ago when I came to the United States, they're very, very hard to procure. But now, because of the assimilation of the Asian immigrants and gardening and the Let's Move campaign of the First Lady, there's so many, you know, like gardens just in the backyard growing all of these wonderful vegetables. And of course, it's my Filipino heritage that always speaks back to me. You know, growing up and just having that very nice sense of, like, you know, oneness with the family. Everything revolves around food. When I go to grandma's house, if you want to have fish for dinner, my grandpa has a fish pond in the back, so catch your own fish. If you want chicken, you have to catch the chicken that's running in the backyard. It was kind of tough, but it was kind of fun. But, you know, like, looking back, it's almost like, you know, it's very nostalgic, because whatever everybody's clamoring for right now is pretty much going back to the way it was when things were pure, when everything is organic. There's no such thing as organic food back then, because everything was grown organically. So, and of course, influences are seasonality, availability, and of course, coming from a big family, cost is always the main thing. And I do remember my mom, whenever she made the lumpia rolls, those little tiny good rolls, you know, spring roll, she always put a lot of potatoes, because that's kind of like how she stretches it for the big family. And here is the recipe. So it's very, very simple. So if you just want to glance through, I mean, I wish I could cook right here, right now, and share it with you. But it's a wonderful, it's a one-dish meal. It's one of those things that you could kind of just hold it. It's almost like ramen noodles. It is actually kind of like ramen noodles. But my best, you know, kind of like part about this is I love the pork cracklings. I'm a pork person. Everything revolves around pork. So but if you're a vegetarian, you could kind of tweak this menu to a little vegetarian taste. So thank you.
So I'll be brief. I'm going to take you on a journey to India. It's going to take about 5 hours. I'm just kidding. Just 5 minutes. I'll be thrown out for this place. Okay, this is the map of India. 1/3 the size of the United States. 1.2 billion people. 1 out of every 6 or 7 individuals in this world, in this universe, is either Indian or a Chinese. So the food is so varied from north to south, east to west, region to region. As you can see, it's surrounded by water on 3 sides, so a lot of seafood had in these coastal areas. So I'm going to be very brief, so I'll just skip some of these things and go straight to basic idea was to show you that, as I said earlier, some of the ingredients that we grew up with, how we have brought that to America and how we have transformed some of the dishes into, okay, spices. So they say variety is the spice of life, and it is the spice that gives variety to Indian cuisine. So we can, it's a big subject, you can go on and on for that, okay. The various methods of using spices, I'm not touching that since it's not a cooking class, okay. Turmeric is one of my favorite spices. This is how the turmeric root looks like. There's a study at NIH on turmeric. It contains something called curcumin. They say that it's anti-inflammatory, and it also helps in not getting dementia and Alzheimer's. They say that in India, the incidence of Alzheimer's is much lesser compared to the Western world, and they attribute that to turmeric. Okay, this is a picture of cashew, and so this is a tamarind kind of thing. It's called kodampuli. We use that in the southern India for a lot of fish curries and things like that. So we have brought that here, and you can find that in some of our fish curries in our menu here. Curry leaves, nothing to do with curry powder. It's again used. See, we use this in a beverage. It's a yogurt drink. We use curry leaves with that. Tamarind, as I start. People ask you all the time how tamarinds are from a tamarind tree and how they're sold in markets. So here, you can see that tamarind is on the right-hand side. That's a tamarind margarita that I was talking about. And that one is kokum. Kokum is again a fruit grown in the western part of India. It looks like a plum. It's like sweet, sour, and salty. And then we use that in a drink. And it's peppercorns. Malabar in India, or you must have heard of Tellicherry peppercorns, the world's best peppercorns. That comes from my home state of Kerala. So we use peppercorns, along with other spices for the fish right here. Jaggery, again, unrefined sugar. So what do? We make a martini with that, with coconut milk and cardamom. Okay. Chilies. Okay, this is interesting. Chilies, people have a wrong notion that everything in India is hot and spicy. Chilies was brought to India only in the 1600s by the Portuguese. So you can still have the abundance of flavor without having the chilies, That's what I've been battling for the last 20 years, telling all my American friends and everybody. Okay, yeah. So here, see, this is taken in Gettysburg. See that earthenware pot? My mom still makes fish curry in that. So that, okay. Bananas. Bananas, again, banana tree and banana extensively used in India. Right from the whole banana tree is used. You use the leaves for serving food or steaming food. The flower of the banana is used. See, they're transporting those banana leaves. The banana trunk, we use that. With the banana flower, we make vegetables with this. So, and this photo was not taken in a village in Kerala or India. This was taken in Gettysburg, Maryland, eating on a banana leaf, So we try to keep up some of those traditions. And next we did a surprise dinner for one of these foodie groups at Indique Heights. So I didn't tell them that I was going to serve them on a banana leaf. So after the cocktails, I told everybody, please go and wash your hands and come. So they thought, why is the chef asking to wash your hands? And that's, we serve them in a typical, but this is how we eat it. So this is talking about the banana banana flour where they're making a vegetables. I'll skip this. So these are some of the street snacks, how we serve it in the restaurant, our modern interpretation. Basically, the tastes are the same, but it's all the presentation and how you, this is the kokum margarita. Okay. Chutneys. Okay. So these are some of the classical dishes. Basically, dosas. Dosa is on the left-hand side is made of a batter of lentils and rice. How we serve them in the restaurant. this is one thing which I've been trying to pitch it to the White House. Now, Christy is here. Okay. Okay, I have tried it with, I told Sam Cass about it, and I saw David Plouffe comes and eats that, and Janet Napolitano comes and eats that. So basically, this is a salmon slider. In this case, we made a salmon cake, and instead of using bun, we have used what's known as uttapam. Uttapam is a savory pancake made of of lentils and rice. It's a naturally fermented batter. So there's no bun here. And instead of using tartar sauce, we use hung yogurt. So it's a very healthy dish. I hope one day Michelle Obama comes there, or okay. So now, again, this is a modern dish, modern interpretation, because Maryland is known for its crab. So we make a papad cone, and we use coconut, where I grew up with coconut. So we put grated coconut on that and serve that in the dish. Samosa, this is how we serve. Mounted on it's a deconstructed samosa, I should say, mounted on chickpeas. And so these are some of the dishes. See this again, a kokum. We have a masala grill, the scallop, with this kokum drink, which I've mixed it with yogurt and did some tempering of mustard seeds. Pork belly you don't find in Indian restaurants, right? So we do have some here. See, we use our French techniques, what we have learned. So we flambe a traditional dish of gulab jamun. We have taken Mexican dishes. Like, this idea came to me when I went to Ozzy Andres OML. I said, wow, why don't I serve my Indian stuff in this, with a spicy, I call it achari taco. And this is a very interesting dish, because there was this time when you go to any restaurant you find creme brulee on the menu. So I said, hey, let's do something different. So we make an authentic dish called Shrikhand. It's made of yogurt. It's hung yogurt in a muslin cloth. And you just add sugar and saffron and cardamom. And then what I did was I tossed it and called it Shrikhand brulee. So, so it sells a lot, because this is another dish for Michelle Obama. Okay. And this is, again, a traditional Indian ice cream called kulfi, which is flavored with cardamom and pistachio and saffron. We serve it. So these are some of the desserts. Earthenware pots in Indian cooking. We grew up with this. I was telling you that my mother made fish curry in an earthenware pot. Even water. See, I tell my kids this and they don't believe this. When I used to come home, my mom used to have water in an earthenware pot. What happens? Evaporation causes cooling. So there were no refrigerators that time. So we were using these. So we use this. These are tandoor. Tandoor, they say, is Indian. But actually, this is what you're talking about, fusion. This came from Central Asia, from Iran, Afghanistan, all this place. So tea, as Conrad was mentioning, that tea was brought to India by the British. So drinking tea is a national hobby. You find people drink tea all over the place. Okay. Thanks.
Let me end with a couple things. But one, I just want to say that I meant it when I was thrilled to be here in your presence. I think that's the same for everyone. The things that you've spoken about certainly remind me of my family, and I'm sure of the family sort of practices and traditions of the members of our audience. And I just think about my dad, who grew up dirt poor in British Borneo post World War II. The Japanese had pulled out, and he was just impressed that you could go to another country, where you could actually pay someone to cook, right? I mean, with the concept of having anything, disposable income to be able to pay someone else to cook was unavailable to him. But he had food in his family. And so when I go to your restaurants, which are all tremendous, by the way, and you see you guys sweating either at the White House or in the back, and there's such care. And you know that based on our conversation today, that comes from this really deep place. So join me in thanking our chefs for their time this evening.